friends. May Jesus be with all of us today and always. Welcome to the program Spiritist Teachings, where we are going to show you classes of the course Basic Notions of Spiritism. The course Basic Notions of Spiritism is the first course of the introductory cycle of studies of the Spiritist Center. So today you're going to watch the class about reincarnation. And if you want to reproduce this class in your Spiritist Center, pay attention to the material that we use in each class. So first, we use this book called Get to Know Spiritism. And this book contains all the 14 classes, and it's used in every single class by all students. We also have a book that we use in the moment of self-enlightenment called Agenda of Self-Enlightenment. This book is not just used during the classes, but also at home, every day at home, as a method of self-enlightenment. We also use a book from Emmanuel called 2000 Years Ago. This is the book of the support of our studies, used in the moment of self-enlightenment as well. In every class, you're also going to need an attendance sheet that we're going to take attendance every class at the beginning of each class. For every class, you're going to find in our website that is here on the screen, and you can go online and you will find a lot of materials. You're going to find all the slides as well as the plan of class, of each class, explaining each moment what we're going to be using, suggestions of techniques, of group studies, and so on. For this class, you're going to prepare little pieces of paper with numbers, and as the students come in, you give one little paper for each person, and this will determine each group, the group that the person will participate later, as well as the study guides for each one of the groups. So when they separate in groups, you're going to give these cards that will tell each group what they need to answer, what are the pieces of the book they're going to read or study. We're also going to use in this class posters that you prepare in advance. So there are 5 posters, and you prepare them before. You can use images from magazines, or you can print, and it's all explaining the class plan. And each of these posters will have a question in the back, okay? And we explain everything in the plan of the class. And these are things that you need to prepare in advance. This, we also want to have these posters so people can follow the activities of the day with markers, crayons, colored pencils as well. So for the class today, the instructor will be Maria Mesquita. May you all have a great class. Enjoy. Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Alice. How are you?
Good, and you?
Hi, take a seat, please. Hi.
Hi, Maria.
Hi.
Hey Maria, how are you?
Very good. Nice to see you. Hi, Cida. How are you? Good. So before we begin, I invite everybody for the prayer. Let's close our eyes and elevate our thoughts to Jesus, to God, and to our mentors, requesting from them inspiration for this class, and that each one of us can have the answers to our questions today about our lives, about ourselves. Please inspire us so we can be enlightened by these wonderful teachings of reincarnation. So be it.
So be it.
Okay, so let's take attendance before we begin. See who came today. Alice,
Yes.
thank you. Judith, Howie, Julio, Cida,
Here.
great. Anna, all right. Nellie,
Yep.
very good. And Magda, all right. Wow, everybody came. So happy. Okay, so as usual, we begin our classes with the moment of self-enlightenment. And the first moment will be a fraternal conversation, and we can be free to talk about all subjects that we want. However, we just need to remember that apparently we are just two, but Jesus will be with us. So every subject that we're going to discuss will be in the presence of Jesus. So you can talk to the person that is sitting beside you, so you can make little couples. And we have 10 minutes for this conversation. So now we're going to do the second moment of the self-enlightenment, which is we're going to talk about the book 2,000 years ago. That's a wonderful book. Everybody read?
Yes.
Very good. And we're going to talk up today about chapter 7 and 8. And in these chapters, we have a lot of examples to our lives. First of all, Livia in chapter 7, she was listening to Jesus preaching. And we know she was a very wealthy lady, but she behaved just like a normal person. She dressed up very humbly, so she would not call attention of anybody. So that was a good example for us too. And then chapter 8 is about the Calvary. So Jesus being judged and being killed pretty much. And another example to our lives, because Emmanuel tells us about Pilate's thoughts about saving Jesus, but he doesn't. And probably to this day, he regrets. So we always should do what we think is right. Even if sometimes it's difficult, let's make the right decision. Otherwise, a lot of tears can come later. So another, again, Emmanuel bringing us good examples. Now we can go to our third moment of self-enlightenment, which is 10 minutes, and is individual. So we can take get your agenda of self-enlightenment and open on the third week. And we can take a look. And today is the day that we're going to do the balance of the day and of the week that has passed. So as a reflection on the gospel, we have here today this little note from Timothy. Fight the good fight for the true faith. Hold tightly to the eternal life to which God has called you, which you have confessed so well before many witnesses. So this will be our inspiration for our individual balance. So each one of us, each one of you can individually reflect and think about your week, think about the improvements you have made. Talk to your mentor. Your mentor is here now, and this is the perfect moment for the mentor to communicate with each one of you. This self-enlightenment program is so good. It's very good for us. Please make sure you follow through during the week. That's very important, very helpful for our improvement. And as we begin our class, what's our class today?
Reincarnation.
Reincarnation, very good. I hope everybody read. To begin our class, I would like to invite everyone to come over here, stand up. And here you're going to find these posters. You can come and observe quietly. Just observe the posters, please. Now, good. Now you can go back, please, to your seats. What did you think? Some of the pictures are strong, right? Now, it's time for you to share with us your thoughts. So I'm going to invite one of you to come here, show one poster that had caught your attention a little bit more than others. And you're going to tell us why, okay? So now somebody to talk to us about your impressions. What about you, Howie? Would you?
Okay. I do have a comment about the one of the pictures on the wall. It's very strong and it has a lot of meaning to me. It shows how some people are bound by a wheelchair and their whole life is tied down versus the people that become a sprinter. It could be through reincarnation in the next life, and it just kind of shows the extremes that life can bring.
As you came in, I gave you a little paper that everybody has, and it has a number on it. This number represents the group. We're going to divide ourselves in 4 groups. So group number 1 can come over here. Number 1, come over here. Number 2, right there. 3 and 4. Okay, so now what we're going to do is each group has a correspondent folder here, poster here, okay? So number 1, we'll talk a little bit about this poster. And you guys are going to answer this question in the back, okay? I'm going to give you a big poster where you're going to write something or draw something to talk to the rest of the class in a minute. So number 1. Number 2, and the question is on the back, 3 and 4. Okay? So now, group 1, please come over here and let us know what you studied.
Why are people born rich and why are some people born into poverty?
And what is the answer?
Divine justice, opportunity to learn.
Very good, wonderful. Please take a seat, great. Group number 2 can come.
So the question is, what is the aim of reincarnation?
Reincarnation is a tool to us to reach perfection. That's why we have expiation texts and trials.
All right, very good. Right, number 3, please come over here.
Is it responsibility of the spirit to choose the body where he will reincarnate? Sometimes on earth, usually not.
Very good. Usually not, because on earth it's going to be more like a general format, and then most of everybody is including this like general format for reincarnation. When the reincarnations are more specific, more complex, is when a more detailed plan comes into place. Number 4 now, please.
The question is, when does reincarnation begin?
The process reincarnations begin at conception.
Very good, wonderful. So it begins at conception and it ends around 7 and 8 years of age. Okay? Well, very good. Thank you. Now we're going to have another study. We can put everything away. You can put it down. And now we have a study guide here. We're going to continue in the same groups, and I'm going to bring this to you, and you're going to use your book, okay? So each study group will study some specific items of the book. 2 groups will study the same subjects, okay? And then you're going to choose somebody to come here and speak for us, all right? So to begin our slides, I would like to invite everybody to go back to the semicircle. So come over here, make the semicircle again, the big group. So let's begin our class with definitions of reincarnation. And nobody better to begin with than Jesus. So in the Bible, in John chapter 3, there is this passage when Nicodemus said to Jesus, "How can a man be born when he's old? Can he enter a second time into his mother's womb and be born?" And Jesus answered, "Most certainly, I tell you, unless one is born of water and spirit, he can't enter into the kingdom of God. That which is born of the flesh is flesh. That which is born of the spirit is spirit. Don't marvel that I said to you, you must be born anew." So that's Jesus explaining to us that he means a reborn in a new flesh. He's talking about reincarnation. So now, according to Allan Kardec in the Gospel according to Spiritism, reincarnation is the return of a soul or spirit to physical life in another body that has been newly formed for it. This new body has nothing to do with the previous one. So Kardec is going even further, explaining that a new body is formed for each incarnation. And he says that it has nothing to do with it because it's made of a new matter. A cell from mom, a cell from daddy will provide the material element for this new body. Of course, this body has a lot to do with the previous one, regarding the baggage that we bring, the memories, the things that we carry within ourselves regarding past lives experiences. But Kardec is specifically talking about the physical body. According to Leon Denis, the soul, after temporarily residing in space, is reborn in the human condition, bringing the good or bad heritage of his past. He is reborn as a little child and reappears at the earthly scene to play a new act of the drama of his life, to pay the debts that he had contracted and to acquire new capabilities that will facilitate his ascension and speed up the march forward. This message is in the book, The Problem of the Being, Destiny and Sorrow. And he's speaking exactly about what we just spoke about, regarding the baggage that we bring, the heritage that we bring from past actions. Objectives of reincarnation. So why? Why do we reincarnate? Why don't we have just one life?
And Kardec was curious about this, and he asked in the Spirit's book, what is the aim of reincarnation? And the Spirits explain, expiation, which is the progressive improvement of mankind. Without this aim, where would be justice? So Kardec here is receiving this beautiful explanation of the purpose of the reincarnation, explaining that we come to pay our previous debts. Because in another question, the Spirits answer that the aim of the Spirit is to reach perfection. And as we can imagine, with very little thought, that in just one life, we could never reach perfection. We could never be like Jesus in just one life. We barely follow his steps. We barely follow his most basic teachings. So we need a lot of experience. We need a lot of falls, unfortunately. We need a lot of pain to learn. And reincarnation provides this to us. All spirits tend towards perfection and are furnished by God with the means of advancement through the trials of corporeal life. But divine justice compels them to accomplish in new existences that which they have not been able to do or to complete in a previous trial. This reminds me of a child or a college student. Imagine you take a course and you fail for some reason, and the school doesn't offer you any opportunity to take that course again. That would be very sad. Imagine our lives with something that is a lot more important than college or school. Imagine if for some reason we fail, and we do every day, we commit mistakes every day. And the divine providence provides us with this opportunity to be reborn, to acquire the knowledge we didn't acquire before, to fix our mistakes. This to me seems like something that God would do for a son. And as Jesus mentioned in the parable of the prodigal son, God will forgive and give another chance. Now, Kardec talks a little bit more about the subject. The doctrine of reincarnation, that is to say, the doctrine that proclaims that men have many successive existences, is the only one that answers the idea we form to ourselves of the justice of God in regard to those who are placed by circumstances which they have no control, in unfavorable conditions to their moral advancement. The only one that can explain the future and furnish us with a sound basis for our hopes, because it offers us the means of redeeming our errors through new trials. This doctrine is indicated by the teachings of reason as well as by those of our spiritual instructors. That's very nice, very good explanation, talking about the justice of God toward those that have a life that offers them unfavorable conditions. Imagine you were born without a leg, or without even mental health, without the necessary food and housing. How can you succeed? How come a God would give so many differences among its children? Without the notion of reincarnation, it's very hard to understand. Leon Denis, in the same book we mentioned before, The Problem of the Being, Destiny and Sorrow, says, imperative is to see in the plurality of the soul's lives the necessary condition for his education and progress. It's from his own efforts, his struggles, his sufferings, that he redeems from his state of ignorance and inferiority, and elevates himself step by step on earth first, and then among innumerable sights of the starry sky. And now we are going to have the pleasure to watch a very interesting movie that talks about scientific research regarding reincarnation, past lives, memories, and so on. Let's watch.
This little boy is referred to as Sam in case studies. A year and a half before he was born, his grandfather died.
When he was about 18 months old, his dad was changing his diaper one day, and Sam looked up at him and said, "When I was your age, I used to change your diaper."
Since 1996, Dr. Jim Tucker, a psychiatrist at the University of Virginia, has been gathering case studies of past life recognition in children that could prove that a soul returns to Earth in another body.
We've now got 2,500 cases in our files from all over the world.
Many people believe in some form of reincarnation. The concept dates back to 800 BC and the Hindu Upanishads. Beginning in India, the belief that some essential part of ourselves may return after death to a new body is now being examined by some scientists as another way to prove the survival of consciousness. Can the study of past life recollections support this theory? The answer may lie within young children's memories.
Very young children, usually between the age of 2 or 3, who start reporting that they have memories from having had a past life. Some of them talk about being deceased relatives, but others will talk about being strangers in other locations. And if they give enough details, like the name of the other location, people have often gone there and found that, in fact, someone had died in the recent past whose life matches the details that the children gave.
The late psychiatrist Dr. Ian Stevenson advanced the field of reincarnation research in the 1960s, interviewing over 3,000 people who claimed to have past life memories. 2/3 of them said that in a previous life they died from unusual causes. He focused on 25 cases in India and realized that young children talking about past lives was much more common than anyone had known. Dr. Stevenson created categories to screen for cases worthy of further study. His colleague, Jim Tucker, still uses this method.
The criteria we use to decide whether to register a case would include 2 of the following characteristics: a prediction of rebirth, an announcing dream, a birthmark or birth defect that seems related to the previous life, statements of memories about the previous life, behaviors that seem related, and then also recognitions of people or places from that life.
Sam's story is an example of how a small child may express what some believe are memories of a previous life.
When Sam was 4.5, his grandmother died, and his father went out to take care of her belongings. When he came back, he brought a group of family photos, which before that, Sam's family had not had any of his father's family photos in the house. One night, Sam's mom had them spread out on the coffee table looking at them when Sam came over and started pointing to pictures of his grandfather.
Mommy, where did these come from?
Those are pictures Daddy brought back from Grandma's funeral.
That's my car.
You see that picture?
It turned out that that was the grandfather's first new car, and one that he was very attached to. His parents had had no belief in reincarnation. In fact, his mother was the daughter of a Southern Baptist minister.
Sammy, come talk to Mommy for a minute.
It's just a coincidence.
Sam's mother became intrigued by her son's statements. She started testing him with questions about his grandfather. She showed him a class photo of when his grandfather was in grammar school.
Sammy, Do you recognize anyone in this photo?
There I am.
No, Sammy, that's your grandpa when he was a boy.
No, that's me.
When I looked at the picture, even after having looked at the other pictures of his grandfather, I really would not have been able to say with any certainty which boy I thought was the grandfather. And of course, Sam was 4 at the time that he did this.
Some children not only remember their past life, but the afterlife as well.
About 20% of the children will describe events between the time when the previous person died and when the child was born. Some of them describe basically sort of hanging out either where the previous person lived or where the previous person died. So they may describe their funeral. Then there are other children who talk about going to other realms like heaven, things like that. Some of them will talk about seeing other beings there or talking with God.
I died and shot up to heaven. God gave me a ticket that let me come back down to earth.
This is not part of our everyday experience to have people talking about past lives. If the children are able to describe memories that then turn out to be accurate for somebody who lived and died in the past, then this suggests that memories or something connected with memories can carry over possibly after the death of the body. I've had a number of friends and acquaintances who have said that their children, when they were 2 or 3, would make one sort of unusual statement. Like there's one woman who said her child said, "In my last life I drove a big truck." This was as they were riding down the road one day. Never said anything else. And, you know, you don't make too much of that. But in these cases, the children don't stop after 1 or 2 statements.
When children continue to talk about having had a past life, they may offer more specific details.
Do you remember your family?
Some people turned my sister into a fish.
Who turned her into a fish?
Some bad guys. She died.
The father had only recently heard about the sister being murdered 60 years before, and then her body had been dumped in the bay. And he felt absolutely certain that the boy had never heard about it.
Some people point out what they believe to be flaws in Tucker's studies.
How do we know all these things actually happened? That is, the boy said this, he pointed there. I mean, I presume these are anecdotes and stories told by the parents, recounted to the author, who then writes them down. We know from research on memory, from research on how much parents influence their children, and the reconstruction of events and how unreliable that is, exactly how that can be distorted.
Some people have argued that it's the parents' enthusiasm for a case that makes it stronger than it really is. So one of the things we code for is the parents' initial attitude about a case. And when I looked, I found that, in fact, the initial attitude has no correlation whatsoever with how strong the case ultimately appears to be.
Memories aren't the only signs of a former life. In Dr. Tucker's cases, a more rare occurrence is when physical characteristics carry over from one body to another, from one life to the next.
In a number of our cases, the child is born with a birthmark or a birth defect that matches a wound, usually a fatal wound, on the body of the previous person. This is something that's fairly common. Most of these are not the usual blemishes that a lot of people have, but they can be quite specific or unusual markings. There's a little boy in Thailand named Chloe. When his grandmother was dying, she expressed a wish to come back as a man. And then when she died, her daughter-in-law took some white paste and ran her finger down the back of the neck of the body. Then Chloe was born a few years later and had this white mark on the back of his neck that looked just like someone running a finger down the back of his neck. Then when he got old enough to talk, he talked about having been his grandmother, said how her rice field belonged to him, and made statements like that.
A common practice in several Asian countries involves marking the dying relative with soot or paste. When the soul is reincarnated, the family can recognize its rebirth by this mark.
Certainly, I think that birthmarks and birth defects argue that there is something that has carried that trauma with it to another life and then affected the fetus.
Of Tucker's 2,500 cases, more than 2,000 of them involved violent or unusual deaths. His data suggests that physical trauma in one life can carry over, that the mind can remember past violence and inflict it on a new body.
There's a famous case of a man who relived an event where he was tied up and developed what looked like rope marks on his arm. So there are examples of mental images producing very specific marks on the body.
What are the conclusions that Dr. Tucker draws from this intriguing data?
I think the best explanation for our strongest cases is that memories, emotions, and even physical traumas sometimes can carry on from one life to another. The explanation for how this carryover occurs largely remains to be elucidated, but in general terms, the idea is that consciousness is not purely a creation of the brain, so consciousness could be considered a separate entity from the physical brain and then could continue on in another life.
The idea of reincarnation sets up a number of possibilities regarding the existence of the soul. Survivors of clinical death may also provide a glimpse into what happens after death.
Did you like the video? Yes. Wonderful, very nice video. Well, studying the past life memories, it's great because it makes the link with what we study pretty much every day in Spiritism. But now we're going to talk about the process of reincarnation. Kardec asked the spirits, is the spirit allowed to choose the body in which he will be, or does he only choose the type, the kind of life which is to serve for his trial? Very interesting question. Let's see the answer. He may choose a body also for the imperfections of that given body, which may offer many trials that will aid his advancement if he succeeds in overcoming the obstacles thus placed in his way. This choice does not always depend on him, however, but he may ask to be allowed to make it. The Spirit's book. So here the Spirits give a good example. We may choose a body for its imperfections. So let's say if I didn't do the right thing with my arms or with my voice or with my legs, I might, between incarnations, request for a body without legs, for a body that cannot speak, cannot see, right? This is not always possible, but we can request. When we reach that point that we want an imperfect body, probably we are ready to make some choices in our reincarnation because we know that that will be helpful. In the book Missionaries of the Light, Andrew Lewis talks about this subject. A great percentage of reincarnations on Earth are processed in templates that work for all, in the field of pure evolution manifestations. But another percentage doesn't obey the same program. When the soul ascends in culture, knowledge, and by consequence in responsibility, the individual process of reincarnation is more complex, escaping from the general expression as it is logical, right? If it's a reincarnation that is a little bit more complex, we'll need a specific plan, not these general plans for a reincarnation. What about the beginning of reincarnation? One of the groups also studied this. Now we are going a little bit more into depth. So Divaldo Pereira Franco, in the book Trips and Interviews, he talks about this and he says, a reincarnation begins at the moment of fertilization or conception, and it is concluded only between 7 and 8 years of age. The spirit impregnates himself in the matter. So the spirit is there, not really attached to matter at the beginning. It's a little bit more free up to 7 and 8 years of age. Start at conception and it ends around that age. So that's why the child sometimes is in contact with spirits, and we don't know that. He starts to dominate the matter until he reaches the onset of adolescence, when he is totally reincarnated, when he absorbs the matter impact and starts to control the body. At this time, the reincarnation is completely accomplished. So it is not until adolescence that the spirit is really in charge of the matter. And don't we always see in adolescence sometimes a change in personality? It's because reincarnation is pretty much accomplished, right? And that's a critical time in their lives, in our lives. And of course, as a consequence, because the reincarnation process goes slowly, can you imagine the importance of childhood? So here we're going to talk about the importance of the period of childhood. Is the childhood period the most important for the educative task? This is the book The Consoler. So it's Emmanuel answering these questions. The infantile period is the most serious and more favorable to assimilate the educative principles. For this reason, his spiritual background memories are more vivid, being easier for him to renew the character and establish new paths in the consolidation of the principles of responsibility, if he finds in his parents genuine representatives of the family's school. So parents are very important during this process. We as parents need to look at our children, detecting them problems, difficulties, challenges, and help them, despite the fact that we are also full of challenges and mistakes. But that's how we help God during creation. And believe me, many times our children will teach us. In some aspects, they are going to be more evolved and they're going to help us. Many people don't believe in reincarnation because we don't remember. How come I had previous lives if I don't remember anything? So there is a physiological cause, and this is Leon Denis that talks to us about it. So the more ordinary objection is, if man lived before, why can't he recall his past existences? Good question. Leon Denis answers saying that we already indicated that physiological cause of this obvision. Physiological cause. This cause is the rebirth itself. In other words, the organism's covering the physical body, the fluidic wrapping, makes the role of an eraser, right? Aurel also talks about the brain. The new brain has a very big influence in this process. So it's a brand new organ. The body is new, so automatically, God is perfect. Automatically, the previous memories are erased, not completely. We know that perispirit will keep the memory. They last forever. But for that period, we don't remember very well. We bring intuitions, we bring sensations, we bring feelings, but not the complete memory. But there's also a need for more of moral order for this forgetfulness. Remembering the past, imagine if we were reincarnated, remembering all our past. See what would happen. A constant remembrance of our past existences would lead us as a spirit to continue our wrongdoings and prejudices about everything. In one word, of a mental heritage, of a group of things that would cost us a lot to modify, to change, the more alive they were in our minds. Well, many times we have a problem and we want to forget, right? And we can't forget because it's so intense inside of us. So forgetfulness is a blessing of God. It's the only way we can start anew. Otherwise, we will be tormented by our previous mistakes. We would see each other and recognize each other as enemies from the past. It would be difficult. And Leon Denis continues here. Forgetfulness, on the other hand, permits us to take advantage of the different states that a new life can offer, helping us to rebuild our personality in a better way. Our faculties and our experience increase in extension and deepness. So when we forget, is a new life. We are new again. And we finish here with Kardec in the Gospel according to Spiritism. A beautiful message about the belief in the future life. What does that cause to us? The compensation promised by Jesus to the afflicted of this earth can only be effected in a future life. He's talking about the Beatitudes. When Jesus promises a lot of things, he promised earth, he promised happiness, and it just makes sense if we believe in a future life. In one life, sometimes we might die tomorrow. And all of this goes to the trash if there's just one life. So the clear and precise idea that can be formed of a future life provides an unshakable faith in what is to come. This faith places enormous consequences upon the moralization of man, because it completely changes the point of view as to how life on earth is regarded. When we believe in life after death, in a future life, we are consoled. Even if you're facing challenges and difficulties here, this could be the changing point for us to have a better life. And we could not finish our class without inviting all of you to study. So do you know these books? These are books that we can read. Many of them are related to the subject, like this Maternity, Paternity, and Life, talking about the responsibility of parents. The second book is from André Lewis, Between Heaven and Earth, also talking about all these relations and the process of reincarnation and so on. And the last book, last but not least, a book about Alta de Souza, A Gentle Messenger of Love. So let's continue. I invite everybody to read at home, study the book. Our next class is about discarnation. Please be prepared, and I'll meet you next class. So now we invite everybody to say our final prayer, saying thanks for this day, for this reincarnation, for this chance to change ourselves, to become better. Dear God, we are tired of ourselves, of our mistakes, and of our problems that we cause to ourselves. So please help each one of us in the program of self-enlightenment, so we can advance a little bit at a time closer to you. Come to us, to our homes, so we can be spiritists also with our family and at work. So be it. Well, so now let's hug each other, and I hope I see you everybody next week.
Thank you, Maria, for the great